My name is Jenna Morrison, and I'm 35 years old. A few days before New Year's Eve, Mom called me. Her voice had that familiar hesitation, the kind she uses when she's about to deliver bad news. "Jenna, about New Year's this year," she said. "Megan feels it would be better if you didn't come. Your presence just makes things uncomfortable for her and her family. It's a big party with partners from the company. You'd probably feel out of place anyway." I stood in my kitchen in the Nashville suburbs, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the calendar on the wall. I didn't argue. I'd learned long ago that arguing only made it worse. "I understand," I said. "That's all." 2 words. Mom sounded relieved. "We'll do something later, just us." She hung up before I could reply. No, "I love you." No Happy New Year. Just silence. So I spent New Year's Eve with my husband Landon, our 9-year-old son Nolan, and my in-laws Harold and Carol at their house. We had Nashville hot chicken for dinner, listened to soft country music, and watched the music note drop and fireworks downtown on TV. At midnight we hugged and toasted to new beginnings. It was warm, it was peaceful. Then the morning of January 1st my phone rang. It was Megan. Her voice was shaking. "Jenna, what are the news saying about you?" If you're wondering how one phone call turned my entire family upside down, stick around, because this story is just getting started. Like this video if you've ever been excluded from family events, comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe for more real family drama stories. Hit the bell so you don't miss what happens next. A few years ago, everything was still so different. Back then, my husband Landon and I would often load up the car with our son Nolan and head over to my in-laws Harold and Carol's house for the holidays. They had always welcomed me like their own daughter from the day Landon introduced us, pulling me into tight hugs and asking detailed questions about my latest designs, as if they were the most fascinating thing in the world. Harold would tell anyone who listened how proud he was of his son's choice in a wife, and Carol would slip extra servings onto my plate, saying I needed to keep my strength up for all the creative work I did. Those family gatherings felt like the center of everything good. For July 4th, Harold fired up the big grill in their spacious backyard, while Carol arranged long tables under the shade of mature oaks they had planted years earlier. Both sides of the family showed up without fail, my parents Philip and Rose driving in from their place, my older sister Megan, she's 40 now, her husband Reed, and their daughter Piper. The afternoon stretched into evening with laughter echoing over plates of smoked brisket, coleslaw, and watermelon slices. Nolan and Piper chased each other through the grass, shrieking with joy when the first fireflies appeared. As darkness fell, we lit sparklers and set off small fireworks, the bursts of color reflecting in everyone's eyes, while country music played softly from the outdoor speakers. Thanksgiving brought even more warmth. Harold and Carol usually hosted, turning their dining room into a crowded, noisy haven filled with the rich aromas of roasted turkey, sage dressing, and Carol's special cornbread baked with fresh herbs from her garden. We extended the table with every extra leaf, squeezing in chairs until elbows touched, and passed dishes family style, while sharing stories from the year. Going around the table to say what we were thankful for always brought quiet moments. Landon thanking me for our life together, me thanking Harold and Carol for making me feel truly part of their family, Megan smiling across at me like we were still little girls with secrets. That closeness made me believe we could build something lasting together professionally, too. I had spent years becoming a landscape architect focused on healing green spaces, places designed not just for looks, but to help people reduce stress, find calm, and reconnect with nature through thoughtful paths, water elements, and sensory planting. The family company Bennett Developments, run by Megan and Reed, handled larger commercial and residential projects across Nashville, always looking for ways to stand out in bids. One Sunday, after a particularly big family meal with plates cleared and coffee poured, I pulled Megan into the living room, away from the noise. I spread out my sketches and explained my first full concept for healing parks: urban green areas backed by research on mental restoration, incorporating quiet zones, therapeutic gardens, and accessible trails that encouraged mindfulness without feeling clinical. Her face lit up the same way it used to when we planned childhood forts. "Jenna, this is exactly what the city needs right now," she said, leaning forward. "It's fresh, it's meaningful, and it could win us major contracts. We should develop it together, bring it straight into Bennett Developments. Imagine the Legacy sisters building something that actually helps people while growing the family business." I left that day floating, telling Landon everything on the drive home while Nolan dozed in his car seat. Harold and Carol waved from the porch, calling out that dinner leftovers were packed for us and to drive safe. In those moments, family felt unbreakable. Shared meals, shared dreams, shared future. I truly believed we were all moving in the same direction, but 2 years ago, things started to change little by little. The shift didn't happen overnight. It crept in quietly, starting with Thanksgiving that fall. Mom called about a week ahead, her tone careful as she explained that the meal would be smaller this year, just Megan, Reed, and Piper, along with my parents. She said Megan preferred keeping it intimate, focused on their immediate household. I stood there in the kitchen after hanging up, staring at the phone in my hand, feeling an unfamiliar hollow spot open up inside. Landon walked in from the garage, saw my face, and wrapped his arms around me without asking questions at first. When he did, I forced a smile and told him it was no big deal, we'd make our own traditions with Nolan. Dad's birthday followed a few months later in early spring. In past years, it had always been a lively backyard gathering with grilled steaks and everyone pitching in. This time, nothing came in the mail or showed up on my calendar. I waited a couple days before calling Mom to ask about plans. She paused longer than usual, then repeated that Megan felt a low-key celebration suited everyone better sticking to the closest circle. The words sounded rehearsed, delivered gently but firmly, and I recognized Megan's influence behind them. Each explanation arrived through Mom, wrapped in apology yet unchanging. Similar patterns emerged with other events. The July 4th weekend passed without mention of joining for fireworks or the usual cookout. A smaller family Christmas the previous winter carried the same reasoning. One by one, these absences accumulated, eroding the sense of belonging I had taken for granted my whole life. I found myself checking my phone less for invitations, anticipating the quiet that followed holidays, and putting on a brighter face around Nolan so he wouldn't notice the shift. Around that same period, the unexpected envelopes from my niece Piper Bennett started appearing in my mailbox. The first arrived midweek, plain but brightly decorated with stickers addressed in wobbly printing. No sender listed, just my name. Opening it revealed a vibrant crayon scene: 2 figures on a swing set, one tall with long hair labeled Aunt Jenna. The smaller one, Piper, surrounded by smiling suns and flowers. Tucked inside was a folded paper saying simply, "Thinking of you." I sat at my desk for a long moment, eyes stinging, before sliding it into a private folder where Nolan wouldn't accidentally find it. Subsequent packages followed irregularly, sometimes every couple weeks, sometimes longer gaps. Each contained new artwork: US picking apples in an orchard we'd visited once, sharing ice cream cones, or building sandcastles at a lake. Piper's notes stayed brief, childlike declarations like, "Wish you were here," or "Love you." The pictures captured memories from better times, recreated carefully, as if to preserve them when real visits weren't possible. I stored them all in that same secure spot, pulling one out on harder days, for a quiet reminder that a small thread still connected us. Harold and Carol picked up on the change during our visits to their home. One Sunday evening, they asked us over for a simple pot roast dinner, just Landon, Nolan, and me joining them. Conversation flowed easily until dessert, when Carol set down the pie and reached across the table to pat my hand. She asked softly if things were all right with my parents and Megan lately. Harold nodded agreement, mentioning their door was always open for bigger gatherings if needed. Their concern wrapped around me like a warm blanket, easing the chill from the growing distance on my side. I thanked them sincerely, assuring everyone that schedules were simply crowded. Deep down, their steady support softened the edges of what was becoming a painful reality. Last year, I finally completed my full method for designing healing parks. It had been a long process, poring over research late into the nights after Nolan went to bed, testing layouts on paper and in small local projects to make sure every element worked in real life. The final version brought together everything I believed in: pathways that guided people gently through different moods, planting choices that changed with seasons to keep the space alive year-round, and quiet corners, with benches positioned for privacy, yet open enough to feel safe. I felt ready to take it further, to see it built on a scale that could actually help a lot of people in the city. That excitement led me to reach out to Megan one more time. I invited her over for a quiet dinner at our house, just her coming alone with Landon, Nolan, and me. Nolan was thrilled to have his aunt visit, showing off his latest school art project before heading to bed early so the adults could talk. Landon prepared a simple meal of grilled salmon and vegetables, giving me the space I needed to lay out my complete plans on the dining table after we finished eating. When Megan arrived, she brought that familiar energy, hugging Nolan tight and complimenting the food as she settled in. We moved to the living room with coffee, and I spread the folders across the coffee table: detailed drawings, material lists, phased implementation timelines, and summaries of studies showing how nature exposure lowered cortisol levels in urban settings. I explained how the design balanced active areas for families with restorative zones for individuals, incorporating water features that masked city noise, and native plants that supported local wildlife. Megan listened closely, flipping through pages and asking pointed questions about construction costs and long-term upkeep contracts with the city. Her enthusiasm built as I spoke, and she leaned forward with genuine interest shining in her eyes. "Jenna, this is gold," she said, finally tapping one of the renderings. "The timing couldn't be better. Nashville is opening bids for a major new park downtown soon, multi-phase with serious funding attached. We can position Bennett Developments as forward-thinking by leading with this. Your method would set us apart completely." She talked about submitting jointly, how it could elevate the company profile while doing real good for the community. Hearing her say, we again stirred that old sister bond, making me believe the distance of recent years might finally close. For a while after she left, I carried that hope around like a warm light. Landon noticed the change in me, commenting how I seemed lighter as we cleaned up together. Even Nolan picked up on it the next morning, asking if Aunt Megan was coming over more often now. I told myself the collaboration would bring us back together, that sharing my life's work with family would heal more than just the parks I designed. But a few weeks passed and the responses grew shorter. Emails about bid preparations no longer copied me. When I reached out to Megan for updates, her replies came delayed, citing endless meetings or last-minute changes at the office. Calls went unanswered more often, followed by quick texts apologizing for being swamped. The pattern felt too familiar, echoing the way invitations had dried up before. The suspicion settled in slowly, then took root. Nights found me staring at the ceiling long after Landon fell asleep, turning over every conversation in my mind. Dreams started visiting, where I walked through finished parks filled with people finding peace, only to see signs crediting the design to someone else entirely. The ache grew heavier, a quiet fear that the trust I'd extended one last time had been misplaced all along. This past spring, I happened to come across company documents on the website. Bennett Developments had won the bid for a major park project in downtown Nashville. The discovery came on a quiet weeknight after Nolan had gone to bed and Landon was finishing work in his study. I was scrolling through local industry updates on my laptop, checking for any overlapping opportunities that might align with my independent consulting. Curiosity led me to the Bennett Development site, where a new banner dominated the homepage. It announced the contract award with high-resolution renderings and a detailed overview that mirrored my work in ways I couldn't ignore at first glance. As I clicked deeper into the attached proposal summary, the full scope hit me. The core principles of my Healing Parks method filled the pages: the strategic separation of energetic and restorative zones, the use of native planting to support mental calm through seasonal changes, the intentional path designs that promoted slower movement and greater awareness of surroundings. Every section highlighted these as the company's collective innovation, the result of internal teamwork pushing boundaries in urban green development. The language positioned it as a unified vision from Bennett Development's leadership and staff. I searched every page for recognition. There was none. No reference to external contribution, no line crediting the originator, not even a subtle nod in the acknowledgments. It read as if the concepts had evolved naturally within their office walls over recent months. The omission felt deliberate, turning what should have been a shared achievement into something claimed entirely by others. I sat back from the screen, the room suddenly too still, processing how thoroughly my role had been erased. Word of the win spread quickly through professional circles. Within days, social media filled with images from the victory party Megan and my brother-in-law Reed Bennett hosted at an upscale downtown venue. The photos showed elegant setups with long banquet tables, ambient lighting, and clusters of partners from the city and private sector raising toasts. Megan appeared in the center of many shots, radiant beside Reed, as they accepted handshakes and praise for securing the transformative contract. Captions celebrated the team's dedication and visionary approach that would redefine public recreation in Nashville. The event captured the kind of professional milestone families rally around, yet no message ever reached me about attending or even knowing it was happening. The pattern of separation extended without pause. Subsequent weekends and minor family dates arrived unmarked by any outreach. Gatherings that once pulled everyone together simply excluded me now, the silence becoming the new normal. The house felt emptier on those days, the absence of expected noise or plans leaving spaces I hadn't noticed before. Piper's private letters increased during that time, arriving more regularly as if compensating for the widening gap. The envelopes bore her distinctive decorations: hearts, stars, and flowers drawn in marker. Inside the drawings grew more elaborate, detailed parks with shaded trails we explored, hand-in-hand picnic spots under spreading trees, open fields where we flew kites against blue skies. One letter included extra lines. "I miss our adventures, Aunt Jenna. Mom talks about the big new park all the time. I drew us there together." Another showed us on a bridge over a stream watching fish below with words, "Best days with you." I kept them all carefully organized in a locked drawer, returning to them when the isolation pressed hardest, finding in her innocent lines the only remaining thread of family warmth from that side. After many sleepless nights filled with suspicion, I drove to Shannon's office to pour out everything that had been weighing on me. Shannon had been a constant source of reliable advice in my career for years. The colleague I could always trust to give straightforward, no-nonsense feedback on even my most ambitious designs. Her office downtown had those large windows that flooded the room with natural light, and the familiar, comfortable setting helped me begin without hesitation. I started from the private dinner where I had presented my finished Healing Parks method to Megan, full of genuine optimism for a real sister collaboration that could benefit us both. I described how her early enthusiasm gradually faded into brief replies, unanswered questions about progress, and the devastating moment I saw my concepts presented as the company's own on their public site, without any acknowledgement of my role. As I spoke, the words came quicker, carrying the buildup of confusion, disappointment, and growing anger that I had kept bottled up for so long, the months of doubt, finally finding a safe place to land as I let it all out. Shannon listened the entire time without interrupting her expression, shifting from empathy to a protective determination that meant more to me than I could express. When I finally ran out of words, she leaned forward and spoke with clear conviction. Jenna, this goes beyond unfair, it's simply wrong, and you have to take steps to protect yourself before it goes any further. She opened her contacts right then and located the specialist she trusted most for these situations. Reach out to Mark Soto as soon as you can. He's handled intellectual property cases for creative professionals and will guide you through securing everything the right way. I arranged a consultation with my lawyer, Mark Soto, the following week, arriving at his serene office that overlooked a small green area with shaded benches and walking paths. He arranged my portfolios on the large conference table, reviewing timelines, correspondence sketches, and supporting notes with thorough attention. His questions were precise yet understanding, making sure he grasped every detail of how and when the designs had been distributed. We worked through the complete copyright registration process via the U.S. Copyright Office, protecting all original drawings, detailed specifications, and research summaries. Receiving the official confirmation brought the first true sense of security, a solid barrier against further unchecked claims. Mark emphasized the importance of ongoing documentation, so I set up a dedicated system to archive every message and take detailed notes from the occasional meetings. Megan continued to extend, always framed as light consulting contributions. Harold addressed it only once during a relaxed weekend when Landon and Nolan were outside practicing soccer kicks in the yard. He caught me in the kitchen reaching for snacks, placing a reassuring hand on my arm for a brief moment. Whatever choices you make next, just ensure you safeguard what you've poured your heart and effort into, he said in his low, thoughtful voice. The short advice carried the depth of someone who had seen hard work undervalued in the past, reminding me of the unconditional support I had without any demands attached. Around the same time, details emerged about the New Year's Eve celebration my parents and Megan were organizing at the family home. It was set to be a significant event inviting key partners from the park project to commemorate the success. Plans included professional catering with Nashville specialties, live performances from local musicians, and an elaborate backyard area for the midnight countdown with custom lighting and group toasts. The information came to me through general company communications, rather than any personal outreach, making the exclusion feel absolute and intentional. A few days before New Year's Eve, Mom sent a short text confirming I wasn't coming. The message was brief and neutral, saying they understood my schedule and hoped I had a good holiday. No warmth, no question about joining anyway, just acceptance of the distance that had grown over time. I read it while making coffee, the words confirming what I already knew. The decision I had prepared for months now felt inevitable, a step I could no longer delay. I set the phone down and looked out the window at the quiet street, the cold air pressing against the glass, knowing the coming days would change everything. I had been in secret contact with the reporter Julie Keller for several months by then. It began with an anonymous email after the bid announcement attaching timelines and proof of my original work. Julie responded professionally, verifying facts step by step while protecting my identity at first. Over encrypted messages and careful calls, I shared everything, the initial sketches with dates, emails, showing when I presented the full method, the copyright filing, and records of meetings where my input was sought, but never credited in the final submission. She built the piece responsibly, cross-checking with sources and preparing for the ripple effect it would create. We timed the release carefully, choosing midnight on New Year's Eve for maximum reach, while the city celebrated, ensuring the story broke when attention was high, but distractions were many. New Year's Eve arrived crisp and clear. I drove the short distance to Harold and Carol's house, Nolan excited in the back seat about staying up late to see the countdown. Landon reached over to hold my hand at red lights, his quiet support steady as always, sensing the tension I carried without needing words. When we arrived, Carol met us at the door with hugs that smelled of home cooking, pulling us inside where the tree lights still glowed softly, and the table was set with her favorite holiday plates. The evening moved gently around their familiar table. Carol served her special hot chicken with all the classic sides, mac and cheese, greens, cornbread, and we ate slowly, talking about Nolan's latest school adventures and Landon's work stories, keeping things light on purpose. Harold shared memories of past celebrations, drawing laughs from Nolan with tales of homemade noisemakers they used to make from pots and pans. Landon stayed close, his arm around my shoulders most of the night, sensing the undercurrent without needing explanation. The simple togetherness felt like a shield against what was coming, a moment of calm before the shift I knew was seconds away. As midnight approached, the TV showed the music note drop downtown, the crowd cheering as the guitar cymbal lowered. Nolan stood on the couch, counting down with Harold and Carol, his voice rising with excitement. At 12, the room filled with hugs and clinking glasses, cider for Nolan, wine for us. Landon held me longer, whispering that we would face whatever came next together. Harold and Carol raised their glasses to fresh starts, their kindness wrapping around me like a blanket against the cold outside. Exactly at midnight, as scheduled, Julie Keller's article published on a leading architecture and design platform. It detailed the full timeline, the healing parks method I had developed independently, the family company's adoption without credit, the documentation proving ownership, and the personal toll of watching my work claimed by others. Simultaneously, the website for my new company, Green Healing Spaces, launched with the complete portfolio, project examples, and announcements of upcoming independent collaborations. My phone began vibrating with notifications, but I silenced it, choosing to stay in the warmth of the moment a little longer before the world shifted. The morning of New Year's Day, my phone started ringing non-stop from familiar old numbers. The first call came from Megan. I let it ring twice before answering, steeling myself for what was coming. Her voice trembled on the line, a mix of shock and accusation. "Jenna, have you seen the article? How could you do this to us on New Year's of all days?" She went on about the damage to the company's reputation, the partners pulling away, the years of work ruined in one night. I listened without interrupting much, the words landing but not piercing like they once might have. Mom and Dad called next, one after the other. Mom's voice cracked with tears as she asked why I would destroy everything they had built, calling it selfish and cruel. Dad was angrier, his tone sharp as he listed the financial losses already showing, the investment they had poured into Bennett Developments over the years now at serious risk. They spoke of family loyalty, of how I had betrayed not just Megan but all of them. The calls overlapped in my mind, a chorus of blame that echoed the distance I had felt growing for so long. News spread quickly through professional channels and local media. By midday, official statements confirmed the city had terminated the major park contract with Bennett Developments, citing ethical concerns and intellectual property issues uncovered in recent reporting. Partners followed suit, withdrawing support to avoid association with the controversy. Megan lost her leadership role almost immediately, the board moving to distance the company from the fallout. My parents faced the reality of significant money tied up in a business now struggling to survive, retirement plans suddenly uncertain. I went through the contacts one by one that afternoon, blocking numbers and emails from the side of the family I had once believed would always be there. The actions felt final, a door closing without drama or second thoughts. No more waiting for invitations that never came, no more hoping for change that wasn't coming. The silence that followed was clean, deliberate. A few months passed in a new kind of rhythm. Green Healing Spaces grew steadily, with the first contracts leading to more inquiries and collaborations. Landon and I focused on building a life centered around Nolan's school events, weekend outings with Harold and Carol, and the quiet satisfaction of seeing my designs take shape in real spaces. The days felt lighter, the evenings calmer, without the undercurrent of waiting for approval that never arrived. Even with everything cut off, I never stopped thinking about Piper. On her birthday and major holidays, I sent gifts anonymously, books about nature and art, craft kits for drawing parks, small things that matched the dreams in her letters. I used online orders with no return address, choosing items that would arrive without revealing the sender. It was my way of keeping that one innocent connection alive, a reminder that not everything from the past had to end bitterly. Looking back, the hardest lesson was realizing family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the ones who choose you every day, without condition. Speaking up cost relationships I thought were unbreakable, but staying silent would have cost something deeper, the truth of who I am and what my work means. If you're facing something similar, know that protecting your truth matters even when it's painful. The people who stay are the ones who were always meant to. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. Your time means a lot. If this story resonated with you, please share in the comments what you would have done, or if you've ever had to make a similar choice. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more real family stories. See you in the next one.